Would you support a mandatory retirement or term limits for U.S. House, U.S. Senate and U.S. Supreme Court justices, and if not, why? Yes. No political appointment should be for life. Edit. Thanks for the seal of approval. Term limits definitely for House and Senate. I think that would be a good idea, but I'm much less sure on where exactly that limit should be set. Government worker age limit should apply to all workers, including those voted in. Federal law says you're too old to work at 65. Physically or mentally unfit. GTFO. If you can't be fit to work a desk job, you can't be fit for controlling the lives of others either. For SC and any other similar appointments, yes. But not for democratically elected leaders. IMO. Career politician is a terrible profession. Serving the public in that way was meant to be a duty you perform by bringing your worldly knowledge to the table to improve quality of life, then return to your community. It was never meant to be a career. You forgot presidents and max age for running. Term limits, age limits, cognitive tests, and attendance requirements. None of that should need an explanation but for the idiots. No one should serve indefinitely, forever. The people running the country need to be able to understand the people, culture, and issues they are dealing with. 10-year-olds don't qualify. 80-year-olds shouldn't either. Somewhat solved by number 2, but if you're 60 and your cognitive health is already failing, get out of office. Why would we trust you to make such important decisions? This is a very important job. If you don't show up without good reason, you don't deserve to have it. I get it. Politicians suck and blah blah blah. That's always the argument. The fact of the matter is, the politicians are elected to represent the people. All of the power they accumulate is granted by the people. To me, someone like Katie Porter, who uses that power to hold powerful special interests accountable, and educate her colleagues as well as the electorate on key issues, is incredibly valuable. It's a fallacy to think that arbitrary term limits will result in a more vibrant democracy. Look at how the right nominates their judges now. The Federalist Society maintains a list of qualified candidates, and elected officials choose from that list. The exact same thing will happen if you introduce term limits. Want to run for Congress? Better be on that list maintained by the DNC or RNC. Nothing is gained, and there is no discernible benefit to the electorate. But if you slap term limits on members of Congress, all you are doing is creating a direct pipeline from Congress or the Senate to powerful law and lobbying firms. Huge multinational corporations can simply ignore people like Katie Porter, because they know that eventually they will run out of time to spend in office. There is something to be said for people who want to serve in Congress rather than in the more lucrative private sector. These are people with options. And frankly, while a lot of them just want to hold their office for the prestige inherent to their positions, I think that is infinitely better than a bunch of social media influencers running for Congress to up their follow accounts. Sure, outsiders sound great. But Trump was an outsider. It was seen as a positive that he had spent zero time in government in any capacity. Look how that shit show played out. So yes, politicians terrible and all that. I understand the impulse. But the average Joe is just simply not going to have the resources to compete with the inevitable candidate industrial complex that this sort of system would create. If you don't like your rep, vote them out. If you really don't like your rep, organize against them and contribute to their opponent's campaign. If you hate them and think you could do a better job, run. That's how democracy works, people. There are no easy shortcuts that make it more fair or representative. There is no reason to throw out good public servants for no benefit. Now, lifetime appointments to courts we could certainly talk about. Yes, a politician dying in office should be a tragedy, not a certainty. Yes, if the Constitution sets an age limit for when you can hold offices, that already sets the precedent that you can consider age when deciding if somebody is competent to run an office. So then all I ask is they consider the other edge point where somebody is so old they are no longer capable of fulfilling their duty. Considering that it's nearly impossible to get incumbent congressmen out of their seats and they win re-election something like 90 to 95% plus of the time. Yeah, I think there should be a limit for them. Yes, to damn old, to damn tired, to damn cranky. Yes, because people get disconnected from what's really happening after a few years. Sort of. I think it's a fine idea to help with corruption. But at the same time, it takes years upon years to build up the connections to get things done in government. Not a mandatory retirement age. But term limits for the House and Senate I can get behind. I'm not in support of term limits for the Supreme Court out of fear it would over-politicize the court more than it already is. No. I think this is one of the solutions that sounds great in theory but falls apart on closer examination. Term limits would lead to a Congress that has no idea how to govern, and increase corruption as these members use their limited time to carve out a private job for themselves. Not saying it doesn't happen now, but it would be exponentially worse. Over the last few years we have seen plenty of incumbents lose primaries and their races. That's preferable to term limits. I strongly oppose mandatory retirement ages or term limits for any elected official at any level. It's more important that voters choose the representatives they want. The voters have to be in charge. For judges with lifetime appointment, I'm not too crazy about a mandatory retirement age for them either. I can't see any benefit to it. I like the current lifetime appointment, with each justice deciding for themselves when they need to retire. I like this because it keeps the judiciary more separated from political cycles. I might be agreeable to amending the Constitution to switch from lifetime appointments to renewable term appointments of perhaps 10 or 12 years. Whoever the president is when their term expires could choose to reappoint them or choose to appoint someone else. This seems fair enough, and preserves judicial independence. But I still don't see much benefit. I don't need some senile old-ass person making decisions about the lives of millions. I'm 100% for term limits and retirement ages. If someone has to be a certain age to run for office, there should also be a maximum age. Term limits absolutely. Not necessarily an age limit, but definitely a cognitive test should be at least yearly taken. We shouldn't have to worry about the mental decline of politicians too proud or narcissistic to step down.